I often wonder how Clarence Thomas went from organizing clothing drives for the Black Panther Party and participating in anti-Vietnam War protests to one of the most influential coons of our time. Let's get into it. So in order to understand the evolution of his coonery, we got to go all the way back to Clarence Thomas's childhood. Now, Clarence Thomas grew up poor in Pinpoint, Georgia, and he is the direct descendant of enslaved people. And he's also a descendant of the Geechee people and even speaks Gullah. Now, he was born to a teen mama and then raised by his aunt until her house burned down. After that, he was sent to live with his grandparents, who then placed him in an all-white Catholic school. Now, at that school, he experienced racism that was so alienating and so crushing. And by the time he reached Holy Cross College in the late 1960s, he was inspired by the Black Power movement. His homeboy said he would dress in army fatigues and a beret, quoted Malcolm X by heart, and helped found the Black Student Union on campus. In his junior year of college, Clarence Thomas joined thousands of students in the Harvard Square anti-war protest. And by Clarence Thomas's own account, the police at that protest brutalized and arrested protesters. Now, instead of being disillusioned at the police brutalizing college students who were standing against war, he began morphing into a super coon. In the infancy of his cooning, Clarence Thomas attended Yale Law School. Now, when Clarence Thomas got to Yale, he faced racism there too. His peers and administrators said he only got in because of affirmative action. But rather than joining the fight to defend Black people's access to these spaces, he internalized the shame and the guilt, and he studied obsessively to prove himself to his white counterparts. But after graduation, he couldn't even get a job. Instead of blaming the system, he blamed affirmative action. Now, in the adolescent period of his cooning, Clarence Thomas had already turned his back on the movement that made his career possible. As head of the Equal Employment Opportunities Commission in the 1980s, he reshaped the agency to stop fighting discrimination as a group issue, pushing an every man for himself approach that weakened civil rights enforcement. He openly attacked Brown versus Board of Education, the case that desegregated public schools, by the way, and called it a missed opportunity. He also dismissed busing orders as disastrous and irrelevant. And you want to know his argument? The Supreme Court should have ignored the psychological harm segregation caused Black children. Now, when President George H.W. Bush nominated Clarence Thomas to the Supreme Court in 1991, Rosa Parks herself stepped forward to warn people about Clarence Thomas. Now, in a statement, Rosa Parks said that Clarence Thomas's confirmation to the U.S. Supreme Court would not represent a step forward in the road to racial progress, but a U-turn on that road. The record and rhetoric of the man leaves me little confidence that his confirmation would in any way help address the profound racial problems and divisions that drag our country down. This was an important historical civil rights figure basically saying that Clarence Thomas would be a disaster for progress if confirmed, and she was right. Now, despite her warning, Clarence Thomas was confirmed by one of the slimmest margins in modern history, 52 to 48. Now, in the maturation period of his cooning, Clarence Thomas morphed into a Supreme Court justice who's been an enemy to the people's movements. On voting rights, he joined the 2013 Shelby County versus Holder decision that gutted the Voting Rights Act's pre-clearance requirement. In 2023, he dissented in the Allen versus Milligan case, which would have forced Alabama to create a second majority Black congressional district. And in 2026, in the Louisiana versus Calais ruling, he voted to gut Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which was a position that would effectively kill the last remaining enforcement mechanism of the Voting Rights Act. He also concurred in the affirmative action ban. And besides all of that, he joined the majority that killed the constitutional right to abortion, dissented against same-sex marriage, and has called for overturning the right to birth control, getting rid of the right to a lawyer for poor people, and more. For the last 3 decades, every major ruling that rolls back civil rights, voting access, reproductive freedom, or press protections, Clarence Thomas has been right there, front and center, often leading the charge. And even after reading and hearing all of this, you're probably still wondering how he got to this point. Clarence Thomas's journey is a cautionary tale about what happens when you mistake individual success for collective liberation. Clarence Thomas decided that if he couldn't build a better system, he might as well become its most loyal soldier. And for that, he's received gifts, access to elite spaces, and prestige amongst his handlers. Just remember that white supremacy is a multinational ideology, and Clarence Thomas has a PhD in it.